All right. We are live on YouTube. Thank you all so much for tuning in. My name is Nicole Jackson. Thank you for joining us for this special event, the Looking Toward the Future panel for Black and National Parks Week. This is also a 5-year anniversary of Black and National Parks Week, which was created in August of 2020. I'm Nicole Jackson, the founder, and I'm so thrilled to be here as your moderator today for this panel discussion with CJ and Alex. This week has been about honoring our journey and expanding our legacy. Today, we look intentionally towards the future, and we have an incredible conversation lined up about the preserving natural spaces, ensuring equitable access, and building a lasting outdoor legacy. But first, let's meet our amazing panelists. CJ, if you would like to get started with introducing yourself and share a little bit about your work. Oh, you're
Rookie
muted.
mistake, rookie mistake. Hi everyone, my name is CJ Goulding, and I promise I've used Zoom before. I live in Lenape Land in Teaneck, in what's also called Teaneck, New Jersey. I'm a son of Jamaican immigrants to this country, and I think that Jamaican heritage and culture is rooted and given me a foundation for how I connect to nature. Uh, the short way I explain myself, I like to show up as a weaver. I like to connect people with themselves. I like to connect people with each other, and I like to connect communities. And so I do everything I can to show up and build community, whether that's through my organizing work, my diversity, equity, and inclusion work. I work with young people in nature, and the work that I do now as a co-founder and executive director of Boys in the Wood.
Awesome. Thank you so much, CJ, for the introduction. And Alex.
What's good, y'all? My name is Alex Troutman. I'm a biologist, author, and science communicator. I, excuse me, I have been doing nature work pretty much all my life. At the time, I really didn't know it was work. I just thought I was enjoying nature. But to be able to not only enjoy nature and also work in this field and connect people through birding, through nature hikes, as well as just showing them that this space is not just a space for wildlife, but it's a space for everyone, especially Black people and people of color. It's one of the ways that I do that, and it's something that I'm passionate about. I grew up being blessed with having land that my family owns, so I could go out and play and explore in the creek. So I utilize my solar privilege to help give back to not only nature but also individuals, and show them that while nature, sure, it can be scary, but as a people group, we have all overcome so many different things, and nature is one of those things. And we have all historically been connected to nature in some form or way, from us using our knowledge of fishing to help support our people, or with, excuse me, or with Harriet Tubman utilizing the calls of owls to help guide people to freedom, slavery, from slavery. It has always been ingrained in us that it's nature.
Thank you so much, Alex. So we did have another speaker. We had some issues with checking in, but they are actually available. So Tim is here with us as well, one of the HBCUI interns with NPS. If you'd like to unmute and introduce yourself, that would be great. As our third panelist, welcome, Tim.
All right, so how y'all doing? My name is Tim Brown II, and I'm an intern here at the New Orleans Jazz National Historical Park here in New Orleans, Louisiana. And what we do is, and what my internship mainly focuses on, is we mainly educate the people, first-time visitors, our first-time visitors to New Orleans, about the history of jazz, the development, and just the overall origins of the genre. And so what we do is we have performances every Tuesdays and Saturdays at 2 p.m. On Tuesdays, I perform with the Arrowhead Jazz Band, doing jazz music. And as a matter of fact, since September is going to be coming up, we're going to be getting a new set list. And of course today, Thursday, we have our piano hours. Fridays, of course, is open. We have, pretty much open. And then on Saturdays we have our drum circles, and excuse me. We have our drum circles on Saturdays. And so yeah, pretty much that's pretty much the gist of my internship. Plus doing some office work as well as doing some filming too.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Tim. And we're going to get started with our questions. So again, if you're tuning in, welcome. I am on YouTube Live, so feel free to check out the YouTube channel if you would like to watch. And if you have any questions, feel free to put those in the chat. So this first question is for CJ. There was an article that came out about your experience in the outdoors and its connection to footwear. It's called Why I Wear Jordans in the Great Outdoors. And it's such a powerful piece on your identity and connection to nature and the outdoors and why that's impactful. Can you tell us about the moment you realized that your identity and the passion for the outdoors didn't have to be separated?
Yeah, I think so. Like I said in my intro, my connection to the outdoors started before I was born with my Jamaican parents, grandparents. They were always outside. They were always pushing us to be outside, and things like that. When I got connected to, I guess I'd say the more stereotypical world of outdoor recreation, the hiking, camping, like the specific hiking, camping, like the activity world of outdoor recreation. Um, it felt more separated, and I noticed some of the spaces that I was in were more white dominated, and they required gear, and like they had all these prerequisites that you needed in order to access it, as opposed to the way that I'd access nature when I was growing up. And so I was also at that point doing work with youth, and so I was working to introduce young people to this idea of nature that had all these requirements for them to be able to connect. And it came up with some of those young people asking me, like, how did I end up there? Why was I there? And ultimately why I was wearing the sneakers, the footwear that I was with, the Jordans that I was wearing in the outdoors. And so for me, the realization and the awareness that this world felt differently, or this part of outdoor recreation felt different than how I connected, and wanting to not wanting to compromise myself for this connection, is what sparked this idea, and what part of what I wanted to communicate to the young people I was working with, and to anybody who feels like there isn't a connection that we have to nature. I think just as much as we might identify with certain brands, um, just as much as we might identify with other parts of our culture, the outdoors and nature is also a part of our identity and culture that we can own, and own fully. We don't have to put down one in order to pick up the other. And so for me, that was the big idea of it. Um, uh, you don't have to pass these requirements in order to connect with nature, and you don't have to put yourself, like, lose parts of yourself to fit into that box.
That's beautiful. Yeah, I think about that a lot in terms of just my background and connection to nature as a mental health tool, but also thinking that it amplified my authenticity even more, the connection with nature, which allowed me to share more of that passion and understanding of self with community. Thank you for sharing. Alex, this question is for you. You've spoken about growing up without wildlife role models who looked like you. Was there a specific animal, place, or moment in nature that ignited your passion so strongly, even without that representation?
Yeah, so I did grow up without any wildlife role models that looked like me, or I like to call it mirrors. I didn't have any representation of what a Black conservation or wildlife biologist was. Um, so for me, I connected through nature, going out with my family, fishing. We did a lot of fishing all across Georgia. If there was a lake, we would find it. Um, that during those times, it was me being ADHD, finding animals to connect with. The one of my animals that I didn't know at the time was known as a spark bird. Was a red-tailed hawk. I was fishing in one of the state parks with my family, and I just saw a bird like fly across, and when I saw it, it looked like it was the tail was on fire. It was a red tail hawk. The sun was glowing through the tail, making it look like it was on fire. So that kind of like sparked interest into me to kind of connect with nature in that way. And I continued looking at other animals for funny stories. During those same fishing trips, a lot of times great blue herons would come stand next to me. And they're a type of bird that fish for their food. And it was almost like they were kind of like egging me on and mocking me. They would catch a fish and then like eat it. And then like, oh, you still haven't caught something? Look what I'm doing. So like those connections just helped me to really reel into my passions. And once I got into college, I took a ornithology class, which is a study of birds, and I found the most like beautiful duck, the wood duck, the male wood duck. And during that time, like during the ornithology class, we was doing what's known as birding or bird watching. But I have been doing it my whole life, looking at birds, but I never knew the actual term for it until I got into this class. And that's when I learned, like, oh, I've been birding or bird watching all my life. I just didn't have the correct terms. So um, back through the connection of the hawk, the great blue heron, and now the wood duck, this is what helped my passion continue to grow. And during the ornithology class, it actually helped me switch my majors um, from pre-vet to eventually middle grades education, and then from middle grade education to actually going back to the biology role and saying, you know what, I'm going to be a wildlife biologist no matter what it takes. Before I was limiting myself to being a vet because that was the only role model of Black and people of color working with animals besides being a farmer that I had. So I limited myself to being a vet, but through the connections of birding and the red-tailed hawks and now the wood duck, I switched my major back to biology and decided to become a conservationist and wildlife biologist.
So do you think the wildlife that you experienced were kind of giving you a little nudge into going back into those, thinking about those career roles?
Oh, definitely, for sure. It was without a doubt. If it wasn't for those wildlife, I definitely would have kind of settled into being a vet.
Thank you, Alex. Tim, can you share a little bit about your childhood nature connections and kind of part two, what got you interested in applying for the internship that you have currently?
So basically, it all started. It's a long story, but it basically all started when one of my professors sent me, got an email from an alumni that graduated from Xavier back in 2020, Xavier University of Louisiana back in 2022. And she had referred to me to doing this internship. So, of course, I did my audition. I sent it in, and then of course, after that happened, I got an email from Ebony Preston Goddard and Candace Price saying that I was accepted to the internship. But of course, due to government issues and all that stuff, I started it. I just so happened to start it late, but here we are today, and at the end of August, going on 5 weeks now. Well, actually 6 weeks. This is the sixth week that I'm actually doing this internship, and so I'm actually enjoying it. My role as an interpreter internship is we have to do ranger talks as well as do some office work here and there, and then of course we have our performances at 2 p.m. from Tuesdays to Saturdays. Of course, with Saturdays we have our drum circle, so that's the best part because I'm actually a drummer myself. I'm a percussionist, and I'm also involved with the Congo Square Preservation Society. So we drum at Congo Square every Sundays from 3 to 6, which will become 3 to 5 once the sun starts setting early. But there's actually some very long history behind it, going all the way back to the 1800s when the enslaved Africans would drum every Sunday because that would be their off day, that would be the only off day they would have, and that was thanks to Code Noir. So when the Spanish took over New Orleans, they gave this code back in 1763 called the Code Noir, which basically prohibits the slaves from working on Sundays, and that's what they would do. They would set up shop. They would meet up at Congo Square, set up shop, just basically embrace their own culture, it's that sort of way. And I can go on and on and on and on about that, But I'm
Well,
actually going to be doing
yeah. I do want to learn a little bit more about your background with nature and the outdoors. Can you share a little bit more about that as far as do you have connections growing up, fishing or hiking or being outside with family or community?
Oh yeah, so this was back when I was a little kid, but I would go to of course I'm from Mississippi, so in Mississippi, we would have deers, birds, and all that stuff. And I remember going to the natural. This was years ago, back when I was a kid. I remember going to the Natural Science Museum, and I would get to look at all of the exhibits. And they would have an outdoor exhibit as well, where we would watch birds, blue jays, red cardinals, all different types of birds.
That's cool. Yeah,
and plus fishing
I
too.
love birds.
Not to mention fishing too. I would fish with my grandma, and we would catch a whole lot of catfish.
Yeah, I feel like I need to do more fishing. I'm more fascinated with fly fishing. So if anybody knows how to do that, I would definitely love to learn. It's fascinating to watch, and it seems very meditative type of fishing, but I'm also fascinated at how they make the flies. It's very intricate, so I always wanted to make my own fly as well. So if anybody knows how I can get into that, please share the information with me. I would love to learn more. I'm going to move on to the next question, and it has more so to do with the work that you do and its impact. And this question is for Alex. So the work that you do that's behind Nature Owl Environmental brilliantly blends science communication with joyful storytelling. Why is it so important to show the joy and adventure of science, not just the data?
I mean, it's important for me to show the joy because that's what I'm passionate about. The data produces results, but you can't get to the data without actually going out and enjoying nature. And it's funny because like sometimes it's things that you don't really know you need. Like it's been going through your work, collecting and arthropods or soft-board organisms like insects and arachnids, doing sweep netting, and going the whole day without getting stuck in the mud. And then you get 20 yards from your truck and you fall through a mud paddle because you're in a tidal marsh. And now you're like, I'm muddy, and it's literally 20 yards from the car. And I've been out here for 4 hours and didn't get not 1 ounce of mud on me. And now here I am. So I want everyone to like experience the full passion of it, and the inconveniences of getting mud on you at the last part of your day when you're about to go home, help to just highlight the things that go right, or the things that you're able to see. Like if I never went down to the tidal marsh and did my research, I would never got to see like roseated spoonbills coming out of the channels, seeing ospreys flying over, even being lucky enough to see dolphins swimming right along the salt marsh. But continue on with this joy and this passion, and not just in having just the data. Like the way that we interact with the outdoors and nature is not only like uplifting and healing in some ways, like just listening to the sounds of birds can lower your blood pressure, but it also allows you to be able to go outside and let all your emotions out, whether it's being able to be joyful and sing like the birds, or sometimes you just need to go outside and scream, and you can scream as loud as you want outside, and no one really cares how loud you're singing or yelling, and even the birds, they're not going to complain. Like, so just being able to feel and be one with nature is so much more important than just collecting data. As I said, like the joy and passion that you get from being outside helps you to know the reason why you're out there collecting data. Why are you studying these birds, or why are you out here on this 88,000 acre forest by yourself looking at wetland plants? It helps you to like refocus and remind yourself like, this is the reason why I'm doing it, and because I'm doing it for these reasons, I'm able to provide the data for other sciences and in ways sometimes communities to be able to help them out and say, this is what's here, and this is sadly is no longer here because of this new rule or this company. It allows me to provide the data and help them fight back anything that's going on. So again, like it's not really all about collecting the data. It's about how you experience nature, and some of that is through the joy of just being able to be yourself in nature and do the thing that most aligns with your passion.
Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, I think a lot about this. I like this question because it helps kind of better gauge what underserved, marginalized communities have experienced in terms of, you know, things like citizen science or environmental justice. Data is really important to have, but I feel like within these communities, a lot of that like research and data collection isn't happening often enough. But we do have the stories of people like actually going through experiences with not clean air, not clean water, lack of access to green space, and also like I feel like there's this disconnect of not having enough of, you know, the community leaders, the skill set for residents to monitor what's going on, not for lack of education, but systemically, the, you know, concern of just providing, you know, jobs and academic opportunities to build those skills and opportunities. And I think it's really important it's kind of like a full circle thing, but having the story be a part of the data just gives it a more holistic understanding, because you want to make sure that people's experiences are represented in the data. And I feel like that's very lacking at this time. And there's so many amazing stories of impact as it relates to our mental health, our physical health, and financially, how that's impacting us. So having that understanding and skill set to be able to say, okay, I can be in my community and make a difference, you know, by doing research or collecting data, and not even necessarily having to have a fancy degree, but because you're curious, because you're interested, because you have questions, you can connect with people who do have the skill set to collect more of that information over time and help the community better understand the issues with, you know, using big data, but also thinking about how do we put that into a more relatable story that makes everybody like, oh, this is all connected. Okay, we have this information, we have the stories. How do we move forward with a solution or solutions to get things done? And that takes a lot of effort and community and resources. So I really like this question because it helps me think more about how everything is connected. And we talk a lot about that with just nature as a whole, and why that's important for us to reference as humans, that, you know, there isn't this disconnect that we need to have from nature as humans, but we're a part of nature and it's sustaining us, but we're also giving back to it by taking care of it in different ways through conservation, things like conservation. I want to move on to a question around, I guess, community, but also storytelling. I want to know, in terms of just, let's start with community. In terms of community, in a short-ish answer, what does community mean in the context of your work, and how did you discover your own community in the outdoors? And this is for all of the panelists. I'll start with CJ.
No, sounds good. A friend of mine describes community as shared resources in action. And so I feel like that is a very succinct way to describe community. Anytime that I see community, there are shared resources, and not just shared resources that are sitting on the table, but there's relationship, there's movement in that community. And so if you think about families, if you think about, you know, towns and whatnot, how they're supposed to operate at their best, it's really, it comes down to relationship and shared resources in action. For me in this outdoor space, the idea of community is something that is it is embodied in nature and is embodied in how I grew up in my family and communities, where, you know, somebody was sick, there'd be people to bring food, there'd be people, like, it was everyone existed as part of something bigger than themselves. I think in this Western white dominated outdoor culture, there's a lot of individual pursuits. It's like, I climbed this mountain, I conquered, accomplished, you know,
Mhm.
I did this to nature. And our indigenous relatives, our ancestors have always understood that we are a part of the community of nature. And so for me, this idea of and it ties in with what Alex was just saying too about um, uh, the stories and data and what you were saying about everything being connected. It really is, community is this idea of connection and figuring out where what I bring to the table benefits someone else and where what someone else might bring to the table benefits me. And so uh yeah, I'll just go back to the top, the quick summation. You asked for a quick, my bad. But it's relationship and shared resources in action and finding ways to duplicate that anywhere we go, because that's what nature does.
And nature is community. Nature is its own community. Tim, I'm going to head on over to you if you would like to share a short response of what community means for the work that you do.
Oh yeah, and to add to that too, I'm going to piggyback off of what CJ was saying. So basically, community as a whole, it basically means coming together. Well, the short definition I can give you is basically coming together as a whole. In terms of giving each other resources, helping each other out. Bonding. It's the same thing about being a musician too. A whole lot of musicians right here in New Orleans, we all come together as a whole, to make, great music. Same thing with what you were saying about nature. We all come together. It's a close knit community. And what I was saying at Congo Square, you would have a whole lot of people coming from places as far as the UK, New York, Chicago, LA, all those places. They would all come to New Orleans and they would, watch us drum. Some of them will drum with us, or some of them will dance. We're basically trying to be open to everybody, and that's and that's the thing, and that's one thing I will say about being in the South too. We all help each other no matter what. That's what community is all about. And it's not just it's not just this me 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 me. We help each other out. So yeah, that's a definition of community, helping each other out, and also collaborating with one another as musicians.
Thank you, Tim. Alex?
Yeah, so when I think of community, if we look at the word community, it has a O in it, which is a circle of 360. It's um, everything is linked together by 360 points. So when I look at that community, it's how are we all coming together? How are we relating to each other? How are we fellowshipping? And again, how are we helping or sharing our resources? Is making sure that no one is left out. And in nature, we are been a community by one looking at how we not only can provide for each other through nature, but also how nature can provide for us, and understanding that what we give or what we give to nature, nature will give it back, and not overusing the resources that we have, whether it's be over exploiting nature or over exploiting our friends and family who are in our community. It's again making sure that that circle is being complete. If you try to pull more from the circle, it's no longer going to be a full circle. It's going to be more of like an overshape because it's out of balance. That's what community is maintaining that balance, and that can either be through making sure that no one is falling, or no one is taking more resources than what they have. You don't want to unbalance the circle, so to speak. So community is again having a relationship. It's fellowshipping, and then it's making sure that everyone is taking care of sharing of those resources.
Thank you. I want to go into kind of your national park experiences. So again, this is Black and National Parks Week. This is day 5, and I've been doing this since 2020, but a big part of the work that I do involves storytelling and collecting the stories of everyday Black people that have visited national parks, and that's all of the 430 plus national park units. But kind of just wanting to understand a little bit more about your national park journey, how that started, and how that those experiences have impacted your work currently. So I'll start with CJ, and then Alex, and then we'll move on to a new question from there, because I know we're kind of running low on time. So CJ first.
Yeah, I can be a little brief. So my first, the National Park Service, or the National Parks, was part of my introduction to knowing that I could do this for work. I participated in an internship program called the National Park Service Academy a few years ago that was designed to increase the diversity in national parks staff. And I'd probably been to a couple of national parks before that, but never on purpose. And I opened up my eyes to one, how the national parks preserves both natural spaces and our historical culture in this country, and the different types of jobs that could be that you could have in the National Park Service. So my first job was as I was studying engineering, and so I was surveying energy in historical buildings in Yellowstone. I spent a summer leading backpacking trips for young people in another national park. And then, have worked with people who work in national parks here in New York City that are a little bit a little bit closer to the city as well. And so for me, I think national parks they are a they're one of the systems that exist, and one of the places that exist for people to be able to uh, they're a part of what our connection to nature can look like. And I think that there is I don't know what to call it. It's like uh I think I'll wrap it up by saying that there's like different doses of nature and culture that we can get. I think national parks are sometimes these bigger versions of that, and they're part of the menu of different things that we can, or ways we can access nature. But I think one of the big things I learned, and the takeaways I'll share, is that there are so many different jobs that people can have. You can be a graphic designer, you can be a scientist, you can be a lawyer, you can be law enforcement, you can be a ranger. There's the wide range of jobs that people can have in supporting our connection to culture and the outdoors.
Thank you, CJ. Alex.
Yeah, so for me, national parks have been a part of my story without even actually being a part of my story. I grew up 20 minutes away from a national battlefield, and we would go there for field trips, do some hiking there, and it was one of those places where I did not see any representation, any mirrors of anybody who looked like me working there, and definitely not someone working in the STEM field there that looked like me. So that's for the longest times, one of the longest, one of the reasons why I didn't think it was achievable to be a conservationist or wildlife biologist as a Black man, because going there and some of the other national parks units there in Georgia, I never saw anyone who looked like me working in those roles. So growing up, we did go to the national parks, and then eventually I got my first job with the National Park Service as a sea turtle biologist down on the coast of Texas, working with an endangered or critically endangered sea turtle, which again, never thought I would do. One, because of the never seen in my being Black, working with the National Park Service, especially in a scientific role. Then I never pictured myself working with sea turtles because at one point in time, I really wasn't using my brain and thought that sea turtles actually came up and laid eggs. I thought I had to go out and work in the ocean to work with sea turtles. But anyways, I got into that role, and National Park Service serve like so many different communities. And while I was in that role, I got to meet an older family with some of their grandkids and their older Black family. And it was kind of my moment when I realized like I'm where I'm supposed to be. It was encouraging. They saw me working up a sea turtle, and once I got done, they was like asking me about the position, and I was telling like my story, and they call over their grandkids like, "Oh, look at this! Like you can be just like him when you grow up." And like it was just like, wow! Like I never had that experience, and to be able to like be that representation for those little kids, and for the like just for the older ladies to like just say that just felt even more like encouraging. It's just something that's so uplifting, especially when an older like Black lady like complimenting you. So it was just like just heartwarming to see that. But going on from there, like I worked at two other park units, and each of those were in different roles where I got to see a different part of the country and how different other people interact with the national park, not only just servers, but the landscape. And for me, it goes back to diversity. Like there's so many different park units that serve so many different purposes, as well as so many individuals that work in the park units that the just like nature, like there has to be diversity in this world, in these companies, to meet the goals of not only the park service but of the larger community. And just by visiting national parks, you can see that.
Yeah, thank you for sharing your stories. Alex, I kind of want to, if you're okay with us, sharing a little bit more about what you've gone through recently as far as just your connection with the work that you do with the National Park Service and how that's impacted kind of your path thus far.
Yeah, so up until recently, I have been working with a National Park Unit here in Georgia as the Environmental Protection Specialist. Well, when the new administration came in, from day one, they set out executive orders to thin the federal workforce. And me being a probationary employee, like I was terminated in February. Then a judge blocked it. So I was reinstated. They said that the termination was illegal. And then I worked for 45 days. I didn't work. Then they brought me back in March. And then last month, July 15th, my term wasn't renewed for my position. So it wasn't extended. And that's because I've been told that my position doesn't align with the president's executive orders to keep the park open and accessible for everyone. And I'm a environmental protection specialist. I work with NEPA, which is the National Environment Policy Act. So it doesn't align with keeping the park open, since I'm not one of the front runners doing interpretation or managing the park. So now I'm looking for another position as we speak now.
Yeah, thank you. I want to go into a little bit more of that as far as just, again, thinking about mental health and like it's not like just a job for people, like it's their life, their livelihood. It's also connected to your passion and community. So in terms of just thinking about mental health and well-being, like what has that been like for you? And do you like, yeah, what is it? I would assume it's not good feelings, but in terms of just up until this point, what has support looked like for you as far as just getting through each day and finding, kind of having to pivot with your work?
Yeah, so it's definitely like frustrating, disheartening, all of the explicitives that you can think of, to like not only be let go, not only once, but twice by the same company in 6 months for something that you can't control. So it's definitely frustrating, but I have a good support system. With my girl, my family, and just my community in general, of all the people that I know, like they've been very supportive, sending me jobs, offering to look at my resume because it's really hard to condense a 10+ year federal resume down into 2 pages for a private sector job. But I've been having people look at my resume and as well as just check in on me, like, Alex, how are you doing? And to like, no, like, really, how are you doing? Not just listen to my BS and it's like, oh, I'm good. But no, like actually getting down, like, Alex, are you really okay? But yeah, so just been having those supportive roles and then being able to get outside with nature even more. Even my job as an environment protection specialist, like I was literally on the computer for 6 or so hours a day. So I've been able to regain that opportunity to get back outside and refocus on the enjoyment of nature.
Thank you so much for sharing. I know it's such a daunting thing to have to think about, kind of not knowing, not having the answers. But you have such, like, your joy is just, it's like a ray of sun. Like every time I see you online, sharing about your adventures, your photography, your birding, and the work that you do, it's so important, especially for Black and Brown people who want to do more of the science and STEM related work in these fields. And I think you're going to be okay. I know it's still very challenging, but like you have so many skills, so many things, and like you said, you have a wonderful community supporting you. So I just want to say that I'm proud of you, and I want to thank you for all of your hard work and just continuing to be an inspiration for others out there who are going through something similar. So thank you so much, Alex. I am going to move on to, because I just realized we don't have a lot of time. I wish I could talk to you for like another 2 hours. I'm going to move on to Tim, because I know the work that you do is really important as well. And thinking about, because based in Louisiana, correct, with the work that you do?
That's right.
Because I know again, thinking about community and why that's important, you talked a little bit about your background with music and how that's so important for Louisiana, the national park site, but also thinking about the 20th year anniversary of Katrina. Places like this, like I don't know, and again, thinking about when we hear about national parks, we're always thinking about the capital N, capital P designation of the 63, further out, more wilder places. But a lot of national park sites are cultural and historical sites that reference kind of the soul of the community and the Black history that connects to music, that connects to storytelling, that connects to our ancestors. Can you share a little bit more about the site and the history, and why that's been important to kind of interpret and share to visitors?
Yeah, so the park was established in 1994, and we're the only park that preserves jazz in the country, pretty much. And so we have an exhibit. Well, actually, I'm gonna tell you this: we're two parts of under one. You have the French Quarter Visitor Center, where we have a whole lot of the exhibits going all the way back to Zydeco, Ico, and pretty much all the different regions in Louisiana. And then of course, we have another section. That's where we have our performances at, and we would have different musicians, mainly known as, jazz musicians, that would come to the park to play. As a matter of fact, very recently we had Jason Marsalis, who's one of the most well-known, famous jazz musicians in New Orleans. Of course, he was born in New Orleans and basically known throughout the country and the world. Came to the park. This was about 3 weeks ago today, and he did a demonstration on the vibraphone. And we have a whole bunch of others too. In the past, there would be some other people in the past that would come, and they would, share their demonstrations, do performances, and all this and that. And so, getting back to the question, and see that whole thing, it all comes down to community. And so, for people that that are not familiar with jazz music, or they're first timers to New Orleans, they would come to the park, and we would do Ranger talks. We would talk about the history, the development, and the origins of, of New Orleans as a whole, the history of jazz and all that. And then we would pretty much tie that all in together, how you would have so many different groups, so many different musicians. They would all form bands, jazz bands, and they would all, come together and they would make music. The same way what I was saying earlier, back to my other conversation about Congo Square, the enslaved Africans. They would all gather at Congo Square, and they would dance, drum, and just, mingle and have a good time. So yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. That's one of the places that's on my list to visit for sure, because again, it all connects past, present, and even future, because a part of the theme is expanding our legacy, and those stories expand our legacy as a community. So I'm really excited to learn more and hope to visit. Hopefully I can visit soon. I am going to move on to the last couple of questions, and then we'll wrap up. I think we may have, I'm going to kind of extend this a little bit, but if anybody in the Zoom chat has a question for any of our panelists, feel free to put that in the chat. If not, we can wrap up, but I'm going to move on to kind of thinking about the future. This question is for CJ, and just, I guess, thinking about the work that you do with Boyz n the Wood and how that connects to your national park journey. Can you share a little bit about what some of that work has entailed and how you're looking forward to kind of building community, building coalition with the brotherhood that you have, and what do you feel like that would, as far as like success, what does success look like for you in terms of expanding your legacy of the work that you do?
Yeah, so nature and mental health have some overlaps. One, Alex mentioned, looking at birds, looking at nature. It's been proven to restore our attention and increase our ability to recover from stress. And it's not a surprise or a breaking news that Black people have generational trauma from and have experienced generational trauma in nature. So the Boys in the Wood, but that's not the only story. We have that generational trauma in nature, but we also like there's a narrative that comes before that of our connection to nature and how we've incorporated in our lives, how it's been a part of our communities, how it's been a part of the ways we live healthy and thriving lives. And so at Boys in the Wood, we use nature. Not we partner. Nature is the context and the frame for 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 giving Black men the tools to not only heal as individuals, but build brotherhood and then to be beacons of healing in their communities. And so our goal is to lower barriers of access to mental health. So we provide free hours of therapy. We have a Black therapist who joins us for our nature-based programming and retreats. We understand that cost awareness have mirrors, like Alex was saying, having people who look like you, having a brotherhood and community to join are barriers for why Black men specifically, don't tap into mental health or therapy or connection to nature. And so we want to lower those barriers, give folks the resources, and then and allow them to be leaders in their community of rewriting this narrative of how we live in connection to nature and things like that. And I feel like it's the way it's the way that we've lived in the past. It's the way that we will sustain and build our communities will survive and thrive into the future. And so we're trying to pull down the barriers so people can tap back into those resources that we have had around us for a long time.
So some of the outings that you've have all of your gatherings or outings been at national park sites, or is it a combination of different types of green spaces?
It's a combination. In Washington State, we spent a weekend at a national park site. Here in New York City, we took over a climbing gym in Brooklyn. We've been at YMCA camps we've been at YMCA camps. We've been at a U.S. Fish and Wildlife Center. And so I think the idea is that your connection to nature can extend anywhere from inside the city to all the way out to national parks. And so these are places that you can return to, you can bring your families to, you can bring your community to, and giving them a big menu, kind of like the Chinese food menus that have like 152 things on it. We want to give them that big of a menu in terms of access to brotherhood and connection to nature as well. And national parks are a big part of that.
Can you share if you have any kind of experiences or testimonials from anyone that I'm sure not all of the Black men that attend your programs and outings have been to a national park. Is there one that stands out, an experience for you that stands out for someone who experienced the national park for the first time?
Yeah. Let me see. National park. Yeah. So I think last fall we took a group of 25 men from San Antonio and different places around the country to Big Bend National Park. And Big Bend is not close to any of the major cities. It's like a 7-hour drive. And so there's this
that's where the Kalima warbler. That's where the Kalima warbler is, by the way. Alex, if you ever want to go to Big Bend with me, we need to find the Kalima warbler.
Let's go.
But yeah, there are people who hadn't been to national park before, and I think a friend of mine talks about travel as like expanding the worldview and the mind of people, and I think travel into nature also does that. And so we had guys who were hiking for the first time, who were in a national park for the first time, and got to see the beauty and the majesty of being in those mountains. I got to feel small, like, not small in terms of looking up at big buildings, but looking
Right.
up at cliffs and things like that. Who got to even briefly like leave the country for the first time, to go it borders up against Mexico, and there's a little border cross. So like you introduce new experiences to people and they grow. And this idea of connecting people to national parks is something that is a part of people growing, is a part of me growing in my experience, and I'm happy that we've been able to offer it to other people as well.
Oh, that's wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing that. My next question is for Alex, and this is, again, thinking about looking forward. What is one policy change or institutional shift in the environmental or conservation field that would most accelerate the work that you're doing?
It's definitely one that the current administration is pushing for. We definitely need more people who look like the rest of America in these um, higher ranking roles within wildlife agencies. We need directors who are people of color, who are Black, who are Indigenous. We also need to focus more on not only um, ecological, like indigenous knowledge, but also Gullah Geechee knowledge as well, and not just focusing on Westernized knowledge that hasn't been working for the last 200 plus years. There's knowledge from traditional Gullah Geechee and indigenous knowledge has been proven to work, and we need to bring that around. And while it's not a policy, we need to dismantle the table that people keep welcoming everyone to. That table is a tainted table that has and was built on the destruction of people and civilizations. Our ancestors, blood, sweat, and tears built that table, but there's no recognition for that. So we need to destroy that table and actually build a new table where all can come and freely give without criticizing and without their information being stolen, but actually utilized for everyone.
Thank you for that. Yeah, and I think I'm glad you brought up the global perspective, because again, this isn't just the America thing. It's a global issue, and we've experienced this time and time again. It's just been rebranded multiple times. And also thinking about, and this is why I focus specifically on the U.S. As far as their national park system, because the national parks in other places globally, they look at conservation very differently. And I would like to say that it is more of a community based focus. It's not, Westernized version of what conservation is, and it connects more to that connectedness of humans and nature. So I don't ever want to lump all of but just because they're national parks, they're all doing the same thing. They're doing very different things than we're doing here in the United States. But also, it is a global effort that needs to take place. The final question I want to move on with is for Tim, and just again thinking about youth leadership opportunities and what that looks like. We're still in a very uncertain landscape when it comes to these things, where we're still supposed to be just kind of business as usual, but it's hard to do that when you have so many changes, reckless changes happening on a regular basis. And I will say that because I don't work for the National Park Service, so boop. As far as just the work that you do with HBCUI, what advice would you give to anyone that would like to apply, who's interested in working for these various national park units, not just the 63 that we think about, but across the 430 park units? What advice would you give to them, and what do you think an opportunity like the one that you have would do for someone who's looking to build their career within, I would say, environmental, cultural, or conservation field?
Now, I I'm gonna give you this one advice. The best advice ever. My advice would be to do an internship. Through that park service, whether it be in environmental protection, nature, whatever. I would suggest doing an internship with them. So that way you'll be able to get the experience. Not only will you be able to get the experience and the work, you'll be also be able to get the network with different people, with the people that work there, with the park rangers and stuff. So that way, when the internship is over and completed, you know, those park rangers that you work with, hey, they might be able to give you a job or something. They might be able to give you a referral. You know. Same thing with here. I have a great support system here in at the park, at the New Orleans National Park. They know that I'm a musician. They know that I'm talented, and they know that I'm a people person. I get along with people. That's the key. Getting along with people, doing what you're supposed to do, doing the internship. And they might be able to consider you for a job, consider you to be a park ranger. So yeah. But the most important thing is the internship. That's the best advice I would give you. Do an internship.
Yes. And I think just, yeah, like having those experiences is really vital to get to know more people in different roles and see them in different roles. I didn't realize there was like historians and like all of these different, researchers, scientists, all of these things within the National Park Service. I always thought of it as just a recreational space to go hiking and, kayaking and camping. But there's people who do conservation work. There's people who do historical work, cultural work. There's receptionists in all of these different types of things. So to be able to have an internship where you can kind of see what those roles entail, I think is really beneficial to kind of give you a better idea of how do you want to move forward. Second thing is community. So we talked about community a lot. We talked about storytelling, but also the importance of knowing that you can make a difference in your community. You don't have to go far away. You don't have to travel far. And that could be a part of, you may want to travel to a bunch of different national parks, but knowing that you can have an impact in your community through just starting with your own story and your own journey, I think does wonders. That was the case for me growing up in Ohio. Cuyahoga Valley National Park was my national park experience, my first one. And it was literally just doing like an overnight when I was in elementary school. I didn't realize I was in a national park, but we talked about going out on the trails and why nature is impactful for our mental health and well-being. And that's a place that I wanted to be able to take my friends and my family, even if I didn't necessarily have a career as a ranger. I wanted to take my family, I wanted to take my community to that place so they can experience it, not exactly in the same way that I did, but just to know this is in my backyard. I don't have to go far to build that connection. So we are at time, unfortunately. We did go over a little bit, but that's fine because all of what you were saying is great. I very much appreciate all of you for, again, sharing. This has been an incredibly rich conversation, and I want to thank you all for sharing your time, your expertise, and advocating for these different key topics that we focus on, especially mental health, nature connection, and thinking about our passions as it relates to our career paths. So thank you all for tuning in. If you're on YouTube or in the Zoom, very much appreciate you attending this panel. This is not the end, but the beginning. The work continues. Follow our panelists, support their amazing and impactful work, and find your role in expanding this legacy. So I'm going to start with Alex. If anyone's looking to connect with you or interested in sharing or connecting with you in general, how can they do that?
Yes, you can reach me on socials at nature_Allen. That's nature with an 8. So N, the number 8, TURE_AL. or you can also reach me through my email at alexk.troutman at
Oh,
gmail.com.
okay. Your sound went out. Sorry. Can you say that again? Your sound went out for like a few seconds.
You can reach me on my social at nature_al, and that's nature with an A in the number 8 TURE_AL. And then my email is alexk.troutman at gmail.com.
Thank you. Tim, is there a way that anyone can connect with you or just learn more about the HBCUI program?
Yes. So I have social media. So for those
Mhm.
of y'all that have Instagram, Facebook, etc., y'all can follow me on my Instagram at BraveTim25 at BraveTim25, or on Facebook, Tim Brown the Second. Or for those of y'all that are old school and y'all want to reach me on email, my email is browntimothy534 at gmail.com.
Thank you. CJ.
Yeah, so you can find me on LinkedIn at CJ Goulding. You can find Boys in the Wood on at Boys, the BOYZNTHEWOOD.org. And you can find us on Instagram at Dem Boys in the Wood. That's all one word, DEMBOYZNTHEWOOD.
Awesome. Thank you all again. Happy 5-year anniversary to Black and National Parks Week. I can't believe it's been 5 years. Woo woo. Enjoy the rest of your day, and we'll see you outdoors. Thank you all again.